Hey guys, welcome to the NC Barndo Build channel. Welcome back if you're a subscriber. Thanks for following along on the build. We really appreciate your support and the comments that some of you have been leaving below the videos. Really appreciate that. This is a day 2 of framing for us, and day 1 was a pretty good day. We got that front eave wall set that you see there in the background. And day 2 here, we get this back wall set and the gable end wall next to the garage set. I'm really happy with the way things are turning out so far. We learned a ton on day 1, just setting those 3 sections of walls. I've learned a lot just about this little tool that I bought for the tractor and how to set these things. Although this first section here, we kind of struggle with. You'll see me. I don't really drop it, but it does slip off the edge here and gets me a little bit nervous here for a few seconds, but I think my tractor this is about the limit. I wouldn't want to go too much more height or width on these walls setting it with this tractor. I think if you had probably a skid steer or something a little heavier, a little bigger tractor, maybe you could probably do some larger sections of walls, but this was enough for me. Being my first time and kind of learning as we go, it worked out really well. Now on day 2, I did not get everything videoed. I will show you here these first 2 sections of wall, and we'll kind of watch my struggle here as we drop the post off the wall and it slips down. You really have to watch the tension on your straps and the eye at the end where it's at in relation to the concrete below. Now you probably noticed there I dropped the loader at the last minute. That was my mistake. I just hit the lever the wrong way. I meant to go up with it to try to catch it and actually dropped it, but luckily we have enough weight on the tractor. It's not that little drop was not a big issue. We get it back into position and you'll see us put the 4 lag screws in the wall. Now, something that I don't detail in these videos, if you're not familiar with the Midwest Permacolumn sturdy wall brackets, they attach to the post, or the post attaches to the bracket via 4 lag screws and 2 1/2-inch through bolts. What I do, or what I did with that front wall, is I had everything set and just put the lag screws in. Once the full wall section was set, then I go back through and put the 1/2-inch through bolts in. And my thought process behind that is I want to really make sure that I'm happy with that wall before I drill those 1/2-inch holes through the post, because once you do that, you're pretty much locked in. So you'll see us go through, and if you watched video 1 or day 1, we only show putting the lag screws in. After the fact, we go back through and put the 1/2-inch through bolts in. And it's really surprising how much that stiffens the wall up just with nothing else holding it. You can climb up the wall and it feels pretty sturdy. And I'm trying to be real ginger here with the tractor. Now that I got my adrenaline pumping here, we're taking things nice and slow and trying to really pay attention with the tension on those straps and where the end of my I-beam is in relation to the concrete and the posts. I do think this is a much easier method of building these walls. The gable end wall next to the garage, we put the post up first and then put the girt boards on, and it was a lot more work doing it that way as opposed to doing it this way. I don't know how much time you save per se, but it's less time that you're working off of a ladder, so that makes me happy. Seems like there's very little in these builds that you can do while you're standing on the ground. So anytime I can spend off the ladder is much appreciated. And another thing you may notice with the front wall in the background is I have some strapping, an X strapping on there. When you build these things on the ground and you mark everything out and you have your girt boards nice and tight and you tip that wall into position, and where the two sections connect you have gaps or any kind of overlaps there, that tells you that your post is not plumb, so you need to straighten it out. So that's a good check and clue to let you know that you need to pull your wall one way or the other, and that's what those X strappings are for. Those front two sections, there was a gap in between the top girt boards, and when I put the level on the post, they both needed to be tipped a little bit, so we ratcheted them into place so that the girt boards were tight at the seams, and then we went ahead and fastened them. And I just went ahead and left the straps up there just for extra support, since there's not much holding that wall. But that's what you see there in the background. All right, the lag screws are in on the right side, and now we're driving in the 4 on the left side, and then we'll move to the next section of wall. I will say the one thing that's nice with the crawl space is when you're down in it there and working on the bottom of the post, it's nice because it's right at about your waist level, waist to chest level, so it makes it kind of convenient there. But everything else with the crawl space deal is just an extra, I don't want to necessarily say issue, but just an extra thing that you have to deal with. All right, first section done, second section on its way up. And you'll see that we actually have a board missing, one of the girt boards missing on this section, and that's because we forgot to mark it. So we actually raise this wall into position, get it fastened down, and then add the girt later. It was one of the middle ones, so not a huge deal, but just a mistake on my part. The far left of the screen, you see the crawl space there. If you've been following along on the videos, you may remember or recall that that was misplaced by the concrete folks that did the foundation wall, and we had to add an extra post. So this back wall, when you look at the end shot that I get with my drone, the back wall is set up a little bit different than the front wall. Just for that fact that we had to adjust for the misplacement of that crawl space access. If you went by the blueprints, it would have had required a post right over the middle of it, and of course we're not going to put a post over that small section of concrete, so we had to move things off to the side. The second section or the subsequent sections of walls are a little bit tricky too, because you have to kind of weave them in with the first section that you have up because your girt boards are sticking out. So it takes a little bit of finesse to get those exactly in there how you want. You can't just raise it into position, which would be nice, but again, it's still easier than, in my opinion, doing it this way than putting those girt boards up after the posts are already up. The I-beam that you see on the tractor was purchased off of Craigslist. I think I paid $400 for it. A guy had used it to build his home and had some pictures of it setting some pretty heavy duty beams. So when I went to look at it, I just looked at the welding job. They looked on all the bracing, and it looked pretty good. I didn't see any cracks or anything, so I felt comfortable purchasing this. Although it's not a manufactured piece of equipment, up to this point it's worked pretty well, and we'll be using it again when the trusses show up to get them maneuvered around. So it's been well worth the money, in my opinion, to have that. Now, the one downside to it is that's a 6-inch I-beam, so it's pretty heavy. I'm going to guess it's probably a 500-pound piece of equipment. So that, of course, takes away the capacity, capabilities of your tractor. And with it hanging out, if you're trying to lift anything far out in front of the front end of the loader, that it just compounds all that weight and makes it heavier than what it really is. So you're really limited, or at least I'm really limited on what I can lift with it, but it works pretty well for these walls. Again, just being a little ginger here, getting things into position. It's hard to be smooth sometimes, but try your best. The other issue with this backside is the rough grading is definitely more rough than the front side, so again, it just adds a little bit of complexity to the build process. But we managed to get it done. We'll have to have some more fill dirt brought in for the backside here, but we'll get that at a later date. And we're zipping our lag screws in at this point. And I think we had this wall set. We started fairly early in the morning, and I think we had this wall set before lunchtime. I did have to make a run to Lowe's early in the morning before we got started, but I think we got started probably around 7. So from 7 to noon, we had this back wall done, and was getting ready to tackle the gable end wall there by the garage. And you'll see in the video, the drone shot at the end, we get that wall all set as well. Alright, the post on the right is done, and we're going to get our 4 lag screws in this post. Some of the other builders on YouTube, you see them using plate levels for getting their post plumb, and that would be a really nice thing to have. This is I'm using an 8-foot level, but it's just a flat level, so you have to kind of finagle it because, as you know, wood is not perfect, so you just try to do the best you can with the equipment and tools that you have. It seems to did okay on the garage, so I think it'll serve its purpose well, but you just have to really, in my case, I have to really watch the budget when it comes to buying tools that, I'm only going to use 1 or 2 times. So, alrighty, that's the end of this video. For day 2, we'll move right on into day 3 after the drone footage. gable end wall we set all by hand, and what I mean by that is we pushed our scaffolding cart in here and leaned the post up against it, put each post up individually, and put our girt boards on after the posts were already up. It's a lot more work doing it that way, but it was nice to have the posts marked out ahead of time. The method that we used by marking the brackets that I've learned from our builders and what have you online really worked great. And this back wall, I'll just kind of show you how these girt boards came out. We really took our time, marked things accurate, tried to get things square and put it up right, and it was a big time saver. So let me show you how we turned out on this back wall. The front wall's pretty good too, but there's a few posts, I think at the bottom. You guys probably can't tell, but sometimes you get one ply that sticks out just a little bit more than the other ones, and it throws things off, I think, just a little bit. But for the most part, the method works really well. Real happy with the results. I just want to show you guys that you can build these things on the ground and get good results. Now, every once in a while you get one that's off just a little bit. I think because the post doesn't sit quite right in the bracket, with the ends not being cut completely flush on some of them. But for the most part, go down here and check this one. For the most part, they're pretty good. What I'm doing today is double checking my work on these girders at the top. We haven't put the 2x10s up on these walls because we hit the limit on my tractor, and I didn't want to push things with having the weight on the top of the wall. So we're going to have to go around and set all of the girders. We have some 2x10s and some 2x12s that need to go up. So what I'm doing to get those perfectly in plane, so I have a completely level ceiling and my trusses set exactly in the same plane, I set my laser up and I'm marking 2 feet up. This is one of my 0 posts that I'm using for the porch, and I'm marking up 2 feet on this post. Now, some of these posts are not completely, it's a 3-ply post, and some of the plies at the bottom are not completely level. You may have one that sticks down a little more than the other. So not every post sits perfectly flat all the way in the bracket. So this just is another way for me to double check my work and to get things a little more accurate when we get to the roof. So I have a 2-foot mark. We're going to put a nail in here, and I can run my tape up another 8 feet mark, and that's where my truss heel is going to set, and I can cut my blocking. Hopefully we can get all the blocking cut today and get those put in the posts, and maybe even get some girders put up. We'll see how today goes. 23.5, and we're going to cut the line off. I think we may put some screws in there first, just to help pull those ears together. And that should give us, we have a 15-inch heel on the truss, and then we're going to have a 2x4 on top of that. 2, 3, 4, and then with the angle, a couple of inches, so we should be perfect on our height. Then we'll just sink a couple nails in. And we're out of nails. Go figure. And that's all there is to the blocking. It's pretty simple. We're just putting that piece of 2x6 in there in the middle ply to help hold the weight of the trusses. Now on this building, we're also 4 foot on center for our trusses with 8 foot on center posts. So that means we have some girders to put up to carry that middle truss that will land in between each post. And that'll be the next step after we get all this blocking in. So I'm going to get the rest of these posts done, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how I'm doing the 2x10s. So I'm doing a little bit of preparatory work for tomorrow in anticipation for us putting the girders up. And instead of trying to hold a board here on this line, I'm just marking where I want to put some blocking, and then that'll hold the board for us. Make things much easier. This post is over the porch, so this will be a 2x12 here, and my truss is going to sit right down into this pocket. So I'm marking down 11¼ inches. So my top of my 2x12 is right here on this middle ear, and my truss will sit on that. And then we'll have another one on the inside as well, which we'll get at a later time. Hopefully get to that tomorrow too, but this will make it easier on us so we don't have to stand there and hold these boards and try to get an accurate placement on it. If you watch the garage build, I did something similar with the sheathing on the garage because I did all the roof sheathing by myself. So just putting up blocking makes a big difference. Make life easy or easier. And I know a lot of this stuff could have been done on the ground, and a lot of people do it on the ground. But for me, who doesn't do this every day, I just wanted to make sure I got this accurate because this is important. An important piece where the trusses are sitting. This one also gets a 2x12. So we're going to do 11¼
amazing how stiff these walls are with not a whole lot of support. I feel very secure up here. I didn't think that would be the case when I started. But they're locked down pretty good. All right, so this one is where the porch plate beams will come in and attach to the side of this post. So this one's a little different because it'll be a 2x12 on this side and a 2x10 on the other. So I'm marking 9 1/4 on that side and 11 1/4 on this side. Right, one more post to go. All in all, it was really an easy day, just up and down the ladder a lot, but we have all of our blocking in our posts and we have all of our cleats on the outside ready to put our 2x10 and 2x12 girders up. Once we get those up tomorrow, we can mark the center in between the posts so we know where to place our trusses that don't land on a post, and we should be all set. Just received a phone call this afternoon from the truss supplier, and they should be here within a week and a half. So we're right on schedule, and so far, knock on wood, things are looking good. We'll check in with you guys tomorrow, and I'll show you how we're doing these girders.